Joseph. That is fine.
Okay. Okay, I will call Joseph. It's not uncommon to see to call the professor by the name. That's why make sure.
Sure. Okay. Before we start, I see that it's almost live on YouTube, or
Yes.
it is already. I just wanted to check how we are going with the PowerPoint slides.
Okay, I asked the admin first about the YouTube streaming link because he still not make it yet. Wait, Dit udah dibikinin belum, Dit?
Done.
Di chat box. Bisa
Yes,
di-share ya?
yes.
Okay, after this, the admin will send the link YouTube streaming in the chat box. Joseph, perhaps you can check it in the chat box.
Let me
But it's
see
not
if I
yet.
can see this in the chat. I mean, it says already it's live on YouTube.
Yes,
It says
yes.
on my screen.
I'm already on Zoom chat.
You can see the YouTube link in the
Okay.
chat box, Joseph.
I can see it. Yes. Yes, I can. Okay, great. And Linda, you are going to operate the slides for me, please.
Oh, sure. You mean the materials, the PPT file?
Yes, the PPT PowerPoint. Tell when to share, if I may.
Yep.
And
wait.
you would then open.
Let me, I haven't downloaded yet actually, so
I have it.
Oh, okay. It turns out the admin have it, Joseph, so he will share it later, okay?
Suaranya patah-patah, Bu Dinda, narasumbernya.
Iya ya. Joseph, actually your account is kind of lagging. It's late.
So,
it's quite
admin,
late to hear your voice.
Admin, do you have a name?
See, no, I cannot hear your voice at all, Joseph.
Gimana Mbak Dinda? Gimana?
Enggak, nanti dia minta di-share PPT-nya.
Oh iya.
Nah, dioperat apa?
Di
aku
next
aslinya ada
kan
sih.
maksudnya.
Aku aslinya ada sih, Dit. Kamu nggak apa-apa, Ta?
Loh, maksudnya aku atau kamu gitu, Ta?
Kamu apa aku?
Mbak Dinda takutnya nanti ini nggak ngerti beberapa bahasa Inggrisnya.
Maksudnya biar aku fokus. Ya udah, nggak apa-apa. Oke. Thank you. Orangnya hilang ya? Kayaknya dia reconnecting.
I'm back now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. It's clear now. Earlier it was lagging and I cannot hear your voice at all. But now it's done.
Yes. Yeah, we just reset the internet here and it should be more stable now.
Your voice is not clear again, Joseph.
Admin, can you hear me? You can't hear me, huh? Can you hear me?
But
okay.
But your
it's now.
But your picture is freezing. Agak lagging Bapak Emal dari tadi, Mal.
Oh, berarti koneksi internetnya kali ya, kurang bagus ya?
Tak pikir punya aku ya, tapi ternyata katanya Adit tadi dari Adit juga, jadi kayaknya dari sananya gitu. BTW orangnya langsung ngajak kenalan ya, udah Mal.
Oke, sip kalau gitu.
Oke. Pak Insan jadi nggak Pak Insan?
Nah, tak telepon dulu ya.
Oke.
Okay, I'm back. Some connection weak here. But now you can hear me, right?
It is still not clear actually.
Can you hear me?
Ah, okay.
Clear. Okay.
It's better.
It's better
Getting
now?
better.
Getting better. Okay. So I asked the admin again. Admin, can you hear me?
Mas Adit,
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you can hear me. Okay. Do you have a name?
his name is Adit actually, Joseph.
Adi?
Adit,
What, Linda?
Yes.
Adip?
Hello.
Okay, great. Adip, thank you.
yep, correct.
Adip, I'm going to. Okay, I can hear you. So I'm going to tell you when to turn on off my PowerPoint. I would like to. I don't want to have it all the time on, but I'll tell you how start it and not close it. Is that okay, Adip?
I'm share PowerPoint right now.
I'm fine. I can hear your. Oh, it's calling.
Perhaps he will share it later after we start the session, Joseph, or you want to try it?
Okay. No, it's okay. I'll try.
Okay. Like this.
Okay. Background noise is gone, but you can still hear me.
Did?
Yes, I can hear you.
You hear me? All right. Perfect. Okay. So we've got another 4 minutes to go, right?
Yes, we still have 4 minutes, Joe. Hi. This is Amalia.
Good to see you. How are
Good
you?
to see you too. I'm good. And how about you? I think your connection is still lagging sometimes because your video is still freezing. Or if it's easier for you, it'd be better for the connection if you
Are not I believe it's better.
Sorry, I can't really hear you. Oh dia, ini.
It's gone.
Are you still there, Joe? Oke.
Mungkin dia mau cari koneksi yang lebih stabil kali ya. Gimana ini? Masa sekelas Austria koneksinya tidak stabil ini, Mal?
Loh, memang begitu.
Kehalang.
Apa, Dit?
Enggak.
He's back. Joseph, are you here? You still unmute your voice?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Internet line is weak here.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Udah mati ya. Ini kecetek.
And
It is you saying something, sorry?
Nadia, for example, has a microphone open. Okay. Now I don't hear any sound, but you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Actually, I can hear you clearly, but it is somehow your video is still freezing. most of the time. So perhaps you can try to turn off your video and still speaking.
And if I talk now, it's better for you?
Yeah. Okay. And what time now in Salzburg, Joseph, actually?
Does it help?
What time?
It's 1 minute to 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, 10 o'clock in the morning. So turns out if you turn the video off, your voice is getting better.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm not the prettiest person in the world. This is fine. You can live without me.
Yeah. Mal, I already asked him like which one prefer, professor or Mr. or sir, but he said it's prefer Joseph. But it's uncommon in
It's
Indonesia.
definitely. Yes. I know. Okay. So it's
It
10
is,
o'clock.
yes, it's 3.
I'm ready. If you want to start, I'm ready.
Okay, so fine, we will start it right away. So good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
And for everyone, you can just please try to turn your camera on ya. Tolong kameranya dihidupkan juga. And I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the guest lecture today on the media ownership concentration, the comparing the effect of digitalization on media pluralism and diversity. And for a brief moment, I would like to invite all of you to sing Indonesian anthem, Indonesia Raya, and Himne Untak also. Please, Mas Adit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So everyone, today our topic is about media ownership concentration, the effects of digitalization on media pluralism and diversity. This topic actually is the book chapter from who's written by Joseph and his team, and perhaps he will tell us more about the book itself, which is entitled "The Success and Failure News Media Performance." And also this topic is actually interesting since in Indonesia, it's kind of similar, the situation in terms of media ownership concentration, which is the situation in Indonesia. As we know, the mass media ownership concentration is centered in a few owners only, as we aware of it. And those few owners also forming the political party. It is in the context of Indonesia. That's why it will be insightful if we heard a lot, we listen a lot about in the context of Western Europe or Austria, especially from our speaker today. And also during our speaker delivering the materials, feel free to write your question. If you have any question regarding our topic, write it in the chat box. You can write it in the English or Bahasa Indonesia also, right? And I almost forgot to introduce our speaker today, our distinguished speaker today, Professor Joseph Trappel. Actually, he's preferred to be called as Joseph, not Professor Joseph, because it's so unusual actually in Indonesia to call the professor by the name only, but it's fine. We will try to call Joseph, and Joseph is the professor of media policy and media economics and the head of Department of Communication Studies at Paris Ladran Universitat Salzburg, Austria, or we recognize as University of Salzburg also. So good afternoon, Joseph. Would you please say hi, perhaps? And okay, so
Hi.
Okay. And so we have come to the core of our agenda for today's guest lecture. Joseph, the time is yours, please. You can, and Mas Adit, please share the materials.
Right. You can hear me now?
Actually,
Clearly,
perhaps when you're
with
speaking,
the
it's better to turn the camera off, Joseph, so it will be not leaking.
the camera off. Okay. All right, it's set up. Yo, well, selamat pagi here in my time zone. Selamat siang over there. Thank you very much for music, I must confess. Because I have been in your country so many times and I really love Indonesia. I've been there first time in 1988. Some of you have not been born at the time. I was visiting Sumatra and Kalimantan and Java, of course, and I went to Batam and from Batam to Singapore. Those days I came back in 98 and 2003. And that time I visited Java extensively. I've been to Surabaya, of course. I remember very well your lovely town over there, and all these towns are so large in Indonesia. Later on, I went to Sulawesi, I went to Makassar and to Manado. A couple of years ago, I went to Ternate and Ambon, and I've been to the Banlands. I took a Pelni to go to Banda Neira, and all that. These are all very sweet memories to Indonesia. And as I know your little country, your huge country actually, I remember that Indonesians, they are crazy about two things. And I'm not talking about Pancasila here. They are not crazy about that. But they are crazy first about watching TV. And secondly, Indonesians are crazy about using smartphones. So YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and now TikTok, they are highly popular in Indonesia. And this is, in a sense, the door which we're going to open when we look into the contemporary communication world. Now, Dinda has already mentioned that I agreed with Amalia, who has been a student of mine previously, and she's in the meeting. Hello again. That I should introduce one of the book chapters of my latest book, actually, and you quoted already the title, Success and Failure in News Media Performance. Now, Anda, if you may change the slide to the next one, then we can see the book.
Next slide, Mas Adit.
He went for a coffee. No, here it is. Okay, thank you. So you can see this book on the left-hand side. And the good thing in this book, and I'm very proud of that, is that this book is open access downloadable for free. So go to that website and then Google the title of the book, and you can download the entire book for free. And if you find that useful, you might use that for teaching purposes in the future, or for your bachelor thesis, or for your seminar work. It is a rich source, actually, of information. I'll give you a little background on how this book has materialized. And behind this book actually is a pretty large research effort, which is called Media for Democracy Monitor. And you can find this in the lower line of the title, Media for Democracy Monitor. And we have been analyzing the media and the role of the media in democratic societies all over the planet, actually, in 18 countries. So we have 2 more volumes, which are also available on that website, with country studies from these 18 countries. And the blue book here, you can see, is in a sense the findings across these 18 countries. So it is indeed a rich source of information, and you might or might not enjoy reading this book. And if you go one step further with the slides, please, then you can see the book, the chapter title I'm going to talk about. Next slide, please.
Next slide, Adit.
Thank you. So soaring, no, this was one back. No, back. Yeah, thank you. Chapter 7, I'm talking about soaring media on concentration, comparing the effects of digitalization on media pluralism and diversity. I have been writing this chapter together with my colleague from
Joseph, we cannot hear you, actually.
And the two of us you can hear me?
It's still not clear at all, your voice. Perhaps you want to reconnect the Zoom account. Yeah? Oke. Sembari nunggu, ini tadi Pak Josephnya ngomong ya teman-teman ya, mengenai bukunya ini bisa diakses secara gratis. Jadi ini merupakan hasil penelitian beliau.
Right, I'm back.
Okay, good. Yeah, now it's clear.
Sorry. It's clear
continue.
Good. Okay, I can hear some voices in the back. Okay, that's great. Lovely, thank you. Well, yeah, I was saying that this is a research.
Sorry for interrupting, Joseph. Sorry for interrupting. For everyone, please mute your voice, okay? Please mute your account, I mean. Okay, thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
All right. Fine, great. Thank you. So one of the the reasons why the internet connection is a bit weak here is that I am currently not in Salzburg, but I'm in a fellow Muslim country, actually. I'm in Egypt, in Cairo, and internet sometimes is a bit weak here. So I apologize for these interruptions, but they are beyond my control in a sense. So when the internet collapses, we come back in a second. Thank you for understanding. Now, if we go back to our topic and issue, we have seen that concentration also has a flip side. So it's a good thing on the one hand. On the other hand, problems we have faced over the last couple of months and 2 years, which is misinformation and fake news, corporate the trust media. Okay, please keep your microphones closed for the moment, otherwise this is difficult to understand. Now, our job as communication scholars actually is to analyze and to evaluate what is going on in this new communication world. And we cannot do this analysis just by describing what is going on. But it is a first step. We monitor the development with our instruments in social sciences, and you know these instruments, I'm sure, like opinion polls or interviews or content analysis or discourse analysis, all these methods we are using, desk research, document analysis. We are reading business reports from industry. We're analyzing economic data. It's just observation. It leads to description of what is going on. And if we do this, let me briefly look into Indonesia for a moment. So what do we see if we observe the Indonesian media landscape? And you know this much better than I do. But nonetheless, and you said in the introduction, Linda, that we do see communication companies in Indonesia growing even larger. So a recent study on Indonesia showed that in Indonesia, only 12 media groups dominate a market of 207 million people. So this is tiny. 12 companies have and dominate a market of almost 300 million people. And among them, you know them better than our media, and they all have TV, they have radio, they have press, they have online. So they are cross-media ownership, concentrated media groups. And what does this do with you this afternoon? So if we do an economic analysis, we will see that most of these large companies, they still are profitable. Maybe except for the printed newspapers, so the paper which you keep in your hands, which is printed on paper, they are suffering losses. But consequently, some newspapers in Indonesia stopped their printing presses during the pandemic and they switched to online only for the distribution, or they ceased operations altogether. But below the line, large media companies are still earning good money. And the reason for this, of course, is that they can switch from one media to the other. So if print goes down, they switch to TV. And if TV is no longer popular with the younger people, they switch to online. So there is a reason for this, there's an economic reason that these companies do it that way. So this is observation, we can observe them and we can describe these developments. But good communication studies do not stop here. Actually, they depart from it. So description alone is not yet an analysis. So when we go this second step towards analyzing our contemporary communication world, first need to have a yardstick or a compass, you know, which tells you where is the north and where's south and where we should go to. And here now, please show the next slide. If you imagine, next slide, please. Yeah, so imagine this is, wait, this is too fast. Go back. Just the blue sky I would like to see.
Display it full, perhaps.
So imagine this blue ball here is a lovely planet from North, like this. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So imagine this is a planet that if you take a picture of orbit over the South Pacific, it might look pretty much like.
Hello.
Yeah, it's reconnecting the web. Like we cannot hear clearly. Wait ya. Nah, mungkin untuk teman-teman yang dari jurusan lain ya, yang nggak seberapa akrab sama terminologi media ownership concentration, itu merupakan sebuah pemusatan kepemilikan media yang membatasi, akhirnya yang nggak membatasi, tapi yang membuat satu negara itu media hanya dimiliki oleh beberapa segelintir kelompok saja. Seperti itu. Jadi kira-kira itu yang kita perbincangkan hari ini ya teman-teman ya. Sambil kita nunggu bapaknya lagi.
I think Joseph is here, but his audio setting is not on yet, Mbak Dinda.
Oh. Mal, I cannot find him.
Oh yeah, wait, I checked. I can find him in the participant list, but you know, the audio icon is not show up yet. So I think he's still in the connecting process.
Perhaps you want to reconnecting.
Dan sepertinya memang untuk slide ini dia mintanya satu-satu sih dimunculinnya.
Oh, oke.
Kayaknya dia mau jelaskan dulu terminologi kenapa ini lingkaran.
Iya, tadi mulainya juga seperti itu sih Mal ya. Tiba-tiba hilang. Nah.
Okay, I could not see him. Maybe he's trying to rejoin.
Mal, but, better to make him as a co-host also, Mama. Ya, Mal ya?
Oh yes. After this ya, we.
Alright. Mana ya?
And also I think in Europe they usually not use Zoom. They are more familiar with WebEx.
Cisco WebEx.
Yes.
Oh. Cisco WebEx. Aku pakai itu lumayan sering padahal ya Mal ya. Dan dia bandwidth-nya lebih tinggi daripada Zoom.
Apa mungkin dia ada settingan di internet sana supaya lebih cepat kalau pakai platform itu dibanding yang lain?
Ini mungkin Pak Josephnya sedang cari tempat yang internetnya aman. Aduh, nggak apa ya teman-teman ya, kita sambil nunggu.
Mungkin sambil tadi dibahas sedikit Bu Dinda apa saja yang sudah disampaikan oleh Joseph untuk teman-teman supaya lebih paham.
Oke, seperti tadi yang katanya Pak Joseph, kita membahas salah satu chapter dari bukunya ya, Soaring Media Ownership Concentration, yang gimana tadi di pengantar saya sudah bilang kalau ternyata yang terjadi di Eropa Barat itu juga merupakan situasi yang sangat familiar dengan yang terjadi di Indonesia dalam konteks media massa ya. Dalam konteks media massa seperti yang kita tahu kan, kalau di Indonesia media itu media mainstream ya, media arus utama, media-media besar yang beritanya kita jadikan jujukan setiap hari itu dimiliki oleh kelompok-kelompok besar ya, kelompok-kelompok besar, misalnya seperti Kompas Group, Jawa Post Group, CNN, lalu mana lagi ya? Ya MNC ya, MNC Media itu apa namanya, jaringannya juga sangat besar. Nah, itu menjadikan diversity atau keberagaman berita itu semakin menyempit. Jadi semakin media itu dimiliki oleh segelintir kelompok saja, jadi semakin media itu dimiliki oleh segelintir kelompok saja, konsekuensinya adalah jenis beritanya itu semakin tidak beragam. Misalnya yang baru saja terjadi ya teman-teman ya, reshuffle kabinet. Kita tahu kemarin baru ada reshuffle dan ternyata hampir semua kabinet yang dilantik merupakan dari kalangan politisi. Jadi malah politisi ini menggantikan profesional ya. Nah, kalau kita di sana bisa lihat tipikal berita-berita yang diberitakan oleh media mainstream yang sudah saya sebut tadi itu pemberitaannya seperti apa sih ya, bisa dilihat dari angle-nya atau dari siapa yang diwawancarai, mungkin itu tidak akan terlalu beragam ya. Media hanya membungkusnya ya, peliputannya itu hanya sekedar memberitakan penggantian. Mungkin kalau kita ingin sudut pandang yang lebih tajam seperti melihat kalau kenapa harus digantikan oleh politisi, kenapa tidak dari kalangan profesional, itu kita bisa justru jujukannya dari media-media alternatif yang ada di Indonesia. Media alternatif itu merupakan media-media ini ya teman-teman ya, yang kemunculannya ini sekitar baru di Indonesia baru banyak, itu sekitar 3-5 tahun belakangan ini kita mengenal media alternatif itu sebagai media yang tidak tidak sepenuhnya mirip dengan media arus utama, tapi ternyata mereka menyajikan sudut pandangnya itu lebih kritis biasanya. Kalau di Indonesia mungkin media alternatif itu seperti Tirto, Narasi, lalu mana lagi Vice Indonesia, itu kita bisa nggak itu Bu Amal kategorikan itu sebagai media alternatif. Lalu juga Mojo ya. Jadi mereka ini nih Pak Josephnya datang. Jadi mereka punya ciri khas tersendiri, tapi ternyata itu mampu ya menjawab keresahan kita. Makanya nanti ini teman-teman bisa tanyakan ke Pak Josephnya, kira-kira media alternatif ini bisa nggak sih menjadi referensi tersendiri ya, karena media arus utamanya kepemilikannya hanya dikuasai oleh segelintir kelompok saja. Joseph, you back? I think I see his account earlier. Joseph?
Itu audionya belum connect. Nah, yes.
Oke, Mas Adit.
Okay,
Joseph, you back?
I'm sorry. Okay, so.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So this is our blue planet, and if we now look into different regions of the planet, we do our analysis, and we can see that there is a choice we have to do when we look into our compass or into our yardstick. So countries, and click once on your on the slide, please. So some countries consider political stability and control as their main goal and orientation. So often such countries are autocratic, such as Arabia or the People's Republic of China or Russia or Cuba or other countries, but also in your neighboring area in Asia, in South Asia, like in Singapore or in Brunei. So they consider political stability and control as important. If political stability and control are the main objectives, then news media become or must become the megaphone, so loudspeakers of the government. Journalism is a service to the powerful political and economic Indonesia experienced such a system during part of the audience and the population, remember, me included, and you may hear about the memories from those times. The number of countries in this section has increased the last decade. You please slide with a number of countries. So can you click on the slide, please? The second group of countries in a minute, setting in your region of the world, the Philippines and other countries, they fall into this category. They claim to relax political control as much as possible, but corporate profit. In such a political setting, it is perfectly all right if Elon Musk buys Twitter or if Jeff Bezos buys the Washington Post. Now, all three countries are listed here as examples in this group, experienced election results over the last decade that brought power parties and presidents disrespecting fundamental media freedoms. So I'm talking about President Trump, who preferred to use his own Twitter channel now, rather than responding to journalists' questions. And both Bolsonaro and Duterte, they considered media as a burden of their administrations, rather than as legitimate mechanisms of democratic control. And there is a third group of countries, and their compass is addressed to the welfare of citizens. So that's the lower part here in the chart. So such welfare states can be found in Europe, in Scandinavia, in Central and Southern Europe, but also in Canada or South Africa or New Zealand, or in your neighboring country, Australia. So social welfare requires and accepts checks and balances among the powerful. Governments act as balance and as mediator rather than as strong actors. Such countries trust and have faith in their citizens, and powerful elites and the government are subject to observations by professional agents, such as NGOs or activist groups, society institutions. And the prime and most important such institution is journalism. In countries, journalism is the watchdog of the citizens, defending the core values against intruders from both the state and the vested private interests. Now, if we have these three, this type, then we see that values are in each compass the guiding orientations. So it points either to political stability and control, or to corporate profit, called freedom, or to social welfare. When comparing these options, you immediately figure out that values are the key to that kind of analysis. Now you can think for a moment for yourself which model Indonesia would belong to today. You might discuss this now or a little later with your neighbors and find out where Indonesia would fit. Maybe it's somewhere in between. You are the experts, I'm not. Now, let us now focus on the model of social welfare and the underlying values which are there. And it all starts with the rule of law principle and the freedom of expression principle. So these values are found in several core documents, and please change the slide here.
Next
you
slide,
find them at the global level.
Not yet, sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So in the United Nations, we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And there, Article 19 says everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. So this is a human right. It's a human right to express freely the opinion. So that's the global level. Then we go a little closer. Next slide, please. From the United Nations, we go to Europe as a continent. Next slide, please.
Next slide, Mas Adit.
Thank you. Here we have the European Convention on Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. Goes back to 1950. And again here, this time it's Article 10. It says everyone has the right to freedom of expression and impart information and ideas. So don't confuse this with the European Union, because this is the Council of Europe, which is much broader. It counted 47 countries before Russia started its war against the Ukraine, and Russia left the council, unfortunately. Now it's 46 countries, and they are all respecting as a principle, which is a constitutional principle, this freedom of speech and the fundamental freedoms and human rights. And even closer than this, next slide please, is then the European Union. And there again, we do have a legal act as well, which is the Charter on Fundamental Rights of the European Union, and there it's Article 11, saying the same thing, freedom of expression and information. So this is very much at the heart of the European value system, and as we said, values are important as a compass. Here you can find the sources for this. What is important here is that the freedom of expression is an individual right, so people have the right to express themselves. But it's also a requirement for the state to provide and ensure the conditions that people can express themselves. The second set of values, next to freedom of expression, is obviously democracy. And these two are linked. So the freedom of expression ensures that voices can be expressed, and democratic governments provisions that these voices can be heard, which is not the same thing. And if you look into our digital communication world, you will immediately see what I mean. So you can post whatever you like internet. If you don't have a lot of followers, nobody's going to recognize. So being heard is an essential element of democracy. Of expression is the diversity of voices. And here we come across this term, which we are discussing this afternoon. So diversity of voices is the core element of this kind of freedom of expression. So all ideas should not only have the chance to articulate themselves, but also to contribute to enhance welfare by offering the best solutions for problems. Let us have a look into the relation between media and diversity. And this is my first theoretical incursion. So this gets a little complicated now. Listen carefully. So next slide, please. What we can start with is the term of diversity. Okay, you can go ahead. So why is diversity so important? The quality of democracy critically depends on the availability of competing ideas. So the better idea should be heard, and the better idea should have an audience in society. Slide, next item. So if we define diversity, then you find a small little definition here. Diversity is the heterogeneity of subjects and objects in terms of one or more specified characteristics. So this is a very academic definition. If we think about this, not for the media for a moment, but let me take an example, which is popular in Indonesia, rice. Right? Rice you're eating. There are several varieties of rice. There are black rice, there's white rice, there's long corn rice, there is short corn rice, and so on. So there is a diversity of rice in Indonesia, and everyone who has the means can choose between this diversity of rice. So this is meant by diversity. It's all is rice, you know. But there are diverse sorts of rice. The same applies to opinions and to the media. And here we, in social science, we make a distinction between reflective diversity, as you can see here, and open diversity, which is the next box here. You can show it if you like. So reflective diversity means that there is a variety of ideas in the society, and the media report about these ideas in the same proportion as media users prefer them. So in other words, if people are happy with flat information, with misinformation, maybe with propaganda, then the media say, okay, this is what the people want, we deliver propaganda. This would be reflective diversity. It is diverse because it's different than there, but it reflects the choice of the people. And open diversity is the contrary principle. It says media should express all reasonable ideas in equal proportion regardless of the public support. So this is much better for a democracy, because then you have not only those which are popular, but those which give additional diversity. Now, the neoclassical assumption is that competition, meaning that different companies are in competition to one another, would provide diversity. But what we see as a market result is that we have a constantly growing degree of ownership concentration. And this is, of course, worrying, because ownership concentration means less ideas, less diversity. And this is why we are concerned with ownership in the first place. Now, if we look at the various problems we are currently faced with, and I introduced a few at the beginning of my speech, we can see that we have recently new challenges which are much more important than before. Fake news, misinformation during the pandemic has been much more prominent than before. So citizens are deeply disturbed around the planet. They have contradictory messages. These messages circulate about the disease, which are very unclear. Contradictory information about the vaccination, whether this is good or bad for the body, about the medicines, if they are causing harm more than good, and so on. And all this is a certain kind of mess. And although people are dying in large numbers around the globe because of the COVID pandemic, the anti-vaccination movement is still large in many, many countries around the globe. Now, these contradictions and uncertainties, they are generally difficult to bear for human beings. So we want to have certainty, and we hate uncertainty. So people seek certainty. So how to behave, how to protect themselves, how to protect their loved ones against the disease, and so on. So reliable and trusted information and news are required. And in our communication world, with digital platforms becoming the dominant way of informing the people, information noise is the rule rather than the exception. So everybody can express him or herself in these channels, which is welcome from a point of view of diversity, as we discussed before. However, this freedom does only guarantee the best information if knowledgeable and trusted people dominate the discourse, which is not really the case at the moment. In other words, diversity in itself is not an absolute value. And let me show this in my second theoretical excursion. So we can see the next slide, please. And the next slide is a bit complicated one, but I'm going to introduce this to you. Okay. So on the left-hand side, you see more competition, meaning that we have a high number of small media providers. Let us consider that in a small country, there are many small media. On the right-hand side, you have less competition and a few large media providers. And now we are interested in the relations that are between these two ideas. Next on the slide, please. Click on the slide. Okay, here we have one idea. So that, okay, thanks, stop. Here we have one idea. So if we have less competition, meaning we have large media companies as we have in Indonesia, then one school of thought, Joseph Schumpeter, he says, okay, this leads to innovation and more diversity because these companies are large, they have a lot of funds, they can invest into new products, so they have more diversity. Or it can also result in less diversity because there are some kind of monopolies created this way. So if we have only very few large companies, they are in a monopoly position, and that would create less diversity. Next on the slide, so we do this for the left side as well. Okay, so if we have more competition, meaning a lot of small media providers, then there is something like a hoteling effect. Hoteling was an economist, and he said, if there are too many small items, then they are similar. You don't find anything new there. So there is a mainstreaming effect if there are too many small companies. He called this, or we call this, hoteling effect. So this leads to less diversity. And one more slide, please. Next one, click on it. But it can also be that we have small companies which produce more diversity because they try to compete with one another. They don't want to be similar, they want to be different, and difference requires some kind of original thinking. Next one, please. Then we have, as media scholars, we need to find an answer to the question, where is the optimum between more competition and less competition? So this is a fruitful field for research, and you might think about this chart when you go on in your personal studies. Now, one specifically European answer to the problem of excessive diversity, and in digital platforms we face this. There are thousands, 100,000, millions of influencers. They create a lot of diversity in a sense, but I think it's a hoteling thing. They're all similar. So one answer in the European context is called public service media. And I would like to introduce this concept briefly to you because it is an important finding and I think a gift to the world by the Europeans. So this year, the legendary icon of public service media is celebrating its 100th anniversary, and this is the BBC in London. So people often confuse this with state television, but public service television or public service media, they are not owned by the state. Compare this to the Indonesian TVRI, but they are owned by the citizens. And this is an important difference. Not the state funds and runs the TV, radio, and online channels, but a company that is financed by the citizens and often by advertising. And their purpose is not to make money, but to fulfill the public service mission. You find this model not only in the countries of the EU, but also in Canada, in South Africa, in Australia, in New Zealand, in other countries in Africa and Latin America, and even India has a breed of that kind of public service media, which is not state media. And this public service mission normally includes not only reliable news, but also cultural programs, children programs, high quality entertainment, and so on. Now, as public service media started after the Second World War as radio and TV programs, online now needs to be added to that offer, and it is, such as a TikTok channel or an Instagram channel. And in some countries, this is an ongoing debate because the private sector says, we don't do this. You know, they claim that in the digital platform age, there is no need for an online public service media. Let us test this argument. So what did we get since digital platforms became popular with regards to reliable news? So on the one hand, we got the highest concentration of ownership in media history. With a small number of owners, most of them US American, like the GAFAMs, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, and just one Chinese, which is ByteDance. we have the highest concentration ever we had in media history. So if we apply the distinction of the country groups above, you will see that these companies are all from the same value system. They claim that they defend freedom, but it is a profit model behind it. Even ByteDance, by the way. So ByteDance comes from China, it's a Chinese company, but they have two wings. So one wing is the Chinese ByteDance, which has a different name, it's not TikTok. And the other one is TikTok for the rest of the world. And the rest of the world model is just for profit making. On the other hand, we have got misinformation campaigns. We've got deliberate manipulation at the global scale. Today, we know that the election of President Trump in 2006 would not have happened without social media and digital platforms. And the UK would most likely still be a member of the European Union without the manipulative activities of companies such as Cambridge Analytica. And as we speak here, another massive misinformation is flooding the digital platform originating from Russia and its aggression against Ukraine. So during warfare, historically, fake news have a long tradition. But what is unprecedented in our times is the global and immediate dissemination of such manipulation. Owners of media and communication platforms could easily stop this. They could apply fact-checking, they could ban and remove channels, they could have flaggers who scan the web for content, they could reprogram the algorithms, deselect abusive and harmful content, but they do not, because their value compass favors profit over truth. Now, if I go a little closer to the book we have been writing, next slide, please. Then you will find in the book this list here, and it says, what did the digital platforms give us in a democratic environment? They gave and amplified voice indiscriminately to all kinds of groups. That's good. But also to undemocratic groups. That's not so good. They enable and amplify bizarre and illegal content, such as misogynistic and racist hate speech. They decide to take down content, thereby accepting the risk of overblocking. They determine communication flows by non-transparent algorithmic selection. They define communication rules on their platforms centrally without democratic control. They follow the platform's owner's agenda, not the public interest, and they transcend the nation state and operate globally, thereby exploiting and profiting from weaknesses of democratic control and jurisdiction. So it is a very mixed picture we get if we analyze what is going on here. In the EU, the European Commission, which is the highest political institution here, launched an action plan called Europe's Media in the Digital Decade. So Europe's Media in the Digital Decade. And measures are currently prepared and will become laws in the near future, maybe still 2022. I'm talking about the Digital Services Act, DSA, and the Digital Market Act, DMA. And these two acts oblige digital platforms to accept some rules and to accept some control. And the general principle is the larger the platform, the more control is needed. Furthermore, the EU has, after 30 years of inactivity, returned to the issue of ownership concentration. Now we have a study going on to monitor media ownership first and then see what kind of restrictions might be needed in the future. And this is important. That because ownership, and this is what we learned from social science history, ownership matters. And the argument goes that because ownership enables but also restricts diversity and pluralism, it has implications on the content of the media. Let me bring you that two examples. So if we argue and if you accept the argument that ownership matters, for example, then if a car maker holds in the newspaper or television channel, these journalists are likely to gain from reporting about quality problems of that very car brand. because they know who is paying the salaries. Or think of a digital platform, only influential newspaper. So how free can the coverage of the newspaper be with regard to labor and working conditions from employees? This is the case with Amazon and the Washington Post. So you will realize in the Washington Post anything critical about Amazon because the owner is Jeff Bezos from Amazon. There is another example why ownership matters. In Austria, the largest private TV channel belongs to Red Bull Media. You all know kind of drink. They're extremely rich. So with the money he earned with Red Bull, he found, among other things, a TV channel. And one day, 2 years ago, the journalists planned to organize themselves in a union, which is perfectly lawful in Austria. The same day, the owner of Red Bull Media, which is the owner of Red Bull, dismissed all journalists from one day to the next and closed down the TV channel because they didn't like the idea of a union. He reversed his decision only after journalists retreated from unionizing themselves. So you can see there are quite a few. Okay. It's getting stopped. Okay. You can see.
Okay, sorry. That's the admin connection getting trouble, I think. But now he's back. Adit, are you here?
Maybe.
Wait. Please.
I can be the one who share the screen.
Okay, thank you, Bu Amal.
Wait a second.
Okay. It's not. We're almost there. So maybe it's 11 o'clock and the live stream was on for 1 hour. It automatically collapsed. I hope it didn't collapse because of the content of my little speech here. Okay. So,
Amal, could you please share it? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, something is shared here. Great. Okay. Lovely. So let me quote from the text, from the chapter, the following sentence. The scholarly social science discourse has determined times and again how media ownership concentration controls editorial boards and newsrooms, curtails content diversity, marginalizes popular and consequently expensive content, and commodifies cultural industries altogether. You find this quote on page 147. As ownership is important, social science developed measurements to determine the level of media ownership concentration, and I just introduced two of these methods to you. One is the so-called concentration ratio, which sums up the market shares of companies in the same market. For example, CR4, so concentration ratio 4, would indicate the sum of the market shares of the 4 largest companies in a specific industry. If it's between 0 and 40% result, it's low concentration. If it's 40 to 70%, it's medium concentration. And anything above 70 would be high concentration. There is a second way of calculating media concentration levels, and this is called Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, HHI. And please go to the next, Amalia. And here you can see how this works a little, at least. Thank you. So the HHI, Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, this looks at the entire market by summing the squares of the market shares of the players. And here, an index between 0 and 1500 represent unconcentrated market, a value between 1500 and 2500, a moderately concentrated market, and the value above 2000 is considered a high concentration market. So this is what you can see here. And Amalia, click once, please. If we do the kind of calculation, you will find the world media average at 3,200, which is already in the high bracket. The figures come from OAM 2016. And if you click again, please, Maria. Okay. And if we look at the world news media, we have even a higher number, which is 5,200. So we are all in the high concentration field here. And Illinois didn't do that. But if we would calculate the digital platforms, they would be even further on the right side. So they would be even more concentrated. So this is the problem we are actually facing, and we can calculate this also in numbers and figures. Now, last slide, please, Amalia. Let me conclude with a few thoughts and a few items here. Of democratic society that is challenged by concentration, by ownership concentration, and protecting diversity is a core objective of media and communication policy. We need to find ways how to control media ownership concentration. Policy choices must be taken, not with regard to the compass, what we're going to want to achieve, but also at an operational level, how to control these developments. Options include public service media, as I introduced to you today. Digital communication platforms enable exchange between people. As we all know, if you use WhatsApp or Signal or whatever you use, then you exchange information. But it also fosters ownership concentration. So if Meta as a company decides to change the rules for Facebook, everybody on Facebook is either out or has to accept the rules. So this is not very democratic. And finally, communication structures and platforms require innovative forms and formats of regulations. We are still in the process of seeking options here. We don't claim that we have found the best solution yet. I think it's the process which contribute, hopefully, a lot. So, terima kasih atas perhatian Anda.
Okay, thank you for trying to say in Bahasa, Joseph. It's so interesting, yeah, everyone, yeah. That turns out what we have, our constitution, like even they have the article about freedom of speech, yeah, not only in Europe, but in Indonesia, we also have our fundamental constitution, UUD 1945, who protecting the freedom of speech, but it doesn't guarantee at all for the news diversity. And also I'm kind of wondering about the measurement of media owners concentration that Joseph tried to elaborate how it would be if we applying in the Indonesian context, perhaps. Okay, everyone, so we open the Q&A session. But before, okay, perhaps I want to use my discretion as a moderator, yeah, Joseph. Yeah, I want to ask him one question before I will read another question from the students. My question is actually about this one. In the context of Austria or Western Europe, yeah, in this situation, remembering the fact that the agenda of media, it is only following their agenda only. How about the public trust towards the mass media in the context of Austria or Western Europe? Perhaps you can have new insight about it.
Okay, just if I understood correctly, how to reinstall trust in the media? Is this a question? Did you ask the question how to reinforce trust in the media? Is this the problem? Did I understand correctly?
I mean, how about the trust towards the mass media in Western Europe, remembering the agenda, it is not following public interest, but they following the agenda of the media per se.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Turn off the camera again. So, for the last couple of years, we have seen an interesting development. before the pandemic until 2019, trust decreased in the classical mass media from one year to the next. So people didn't trust anymore. Even public service media were no longer trusted media, and people discovered new sources for the information, like digital platforms and so on. Then pandemic came. The interesting fact was that during the pandemic, so people are more interested in the classical mass media than before, because they said before, they were uncertain about the future. They don't like uncertainty. So they come back to the classical media and say, okay, I rather believe what the television is telling me rather than what I receive on WhatsApp or on Facebook. So trust strongly increased over the last 2 years. And in this year, 2020, when the pandemic is not yet over, but it's lower in the importance, trust declines again. So there is a kind of an up and down in trust in the classical media. I believe that it's a challenge, and I think it's important for the classical mass media to be the most trusted element in the media environment. And that difference between an editor for the journalists, for their job, there are professional people doing this on the one hand, and on the other hand, journalists. It's just anybody. And there, I think, is the major difference between editorial media and digital platforms. And I see a good future for editorial media and for journalists.
Okay. It's interesting, yeah. Remembering in Indonesia also, we facing that ups and down, take and take in terms of the trust from public towards the mass media or digital platform itself. And Joseph, now I will read the question from students. The first question, it is from Dewa. Dewa is from English Literature Department, and he asking, for those in power, information is something crucial, and telling truth that might lower their standing are undesirable. During the war, recorded that Biden, Zelensky, and Putin gave speech of different reality. What is freedom of speech? If the sources are too diluted, it is, I'm not familiar with this vocab, diluted. Do you get what the question, okay, Joseph? Actually, you can see in the chat box also.
I can read it. Mm-hmm. Well, it is a difficult question, because during the war, most of the rules we are used to and we have studied so far are just no longer in place. So during war and times of war, we do have a number of theories in communication studies, one of which, and I think this is an important one, is the so-called rally around the flag theory. And it means that if war breaks out in a country, the media are immediately rallying behind the government. So they support the government in order to support the public interest or the nation's interest or the identity or something. This has to do with objective journalism. So this is just rallying around the flag. And what we see now in Ukraine and in Russia is exactly this. So Russian media are totally controlled now. The government tries to have a strong hand on the media, doesn't allow different voices, and they expect the media to rally around the Russian flag. And pretty much the same happens in the Ukraine. So even there, the media are maybe a little more free than in Russia, but even there, media are expected to defend the case of the Ukraine. We do have a number of independent journalists working in the Ukraine, in the war zone from us and from other countries, and we do get some reports, but we get very little independent reports from Russia. So in that sense, what is freedom of expression in times of war is very difficult to say. I would defend personally the principle of freedom of speech also in times of war. So we have seen in the wars of the past that media are of crucial importance to end wars, to put an end to military action, because media can mediate between the counterpart, and so important to start the mediation process between different parties, that freedom of speech remains a core in peace seeking and also in peace installing. So this is more or less what how I would react to your smart questions. Thank you very much for that, Mohammed.
Okay, it's a compliment actually, Dewa. It's a smart question. Thank you, Joseph. The second question, it is from Jovanka. He asking, do you think it is indispensable for academic communities to step in by creating academia union media, since they have a lot of resources with diverse concentration? Please, Joseph.
Can I read this number? Yes, can I read this number? Is this in the chat?
From Jovanka. Do you think it's indispensable for academic communities to step in by creating academia union media? So for
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this my answer would be yes. This is an option. This is a good idea, and I think we should go along that road. However, it depends a lot on the culture. So there are national cultures where this is part of the tradition, and I know that in Indonesia there are a lot of small media. There is a lot of diversity in the media. There are a lot of communities going on, and also at the academic level. To have impact, however, it is important to have a strong dissemination. So you can all produce video, but don't have anybody outside the academic world who is receiving that kind of information or who is interested in that. Your impact, your implications is being very limited. So yes, I think it's important to reduce the media.
It is important, but also perhaps challenging at the same time.
There's a forum in the academic world, but it is important to disseminate them. Oh, I don't have sound here.
Yeah, sorry. It is a little bit lagging
for the moment. Okay. Okay.
Perhaps we directly step into the next question. It's fine, yeah, Joseph. It is from Kevin. So Kevin asking about the media community, and also the media alternative on Europe and on Western Europe. Are they still relevant to inform something to audience, perhaps about how the trust and the development of alternative media or community media in Western Europe or Austria itself, Joseph? And he's gone, yeah.
Yeah, actually he's still here, but I think the audio settings is disconnected. Yeah. Because I couldn't see his microphone icon like what we have.
Oke, it's fine. Sambil kita nunggu, tadi benar ya Kevin ya, maksudnya kan apakah media komunitas sama media alternatif itu mendapatkan tempat gitu ya di Eropa Barat itu ya, Kevin ya, kayak gitu ya pertanyaannya ya. Oke. Thank you ya teman-teman ya yang sudah tanya. Ini diskusinya lumayan hidup karena teman-teman juga punya pertanyaan yang bagus-bagus tadi. Apalagi Dewa ya, Dewa yang nggak pernah absen tanya di kelas. Mana ini? Joseph, oke. Nggak ada sih. Word inflation.
Okay, I think he will try to join again because I couldn't see his name, Budinda, in the participants list.
Yeah, he try to reconnecting. It's fine.
Don't forget for everyone to fill in the form that have been shared in the chat box.
Menarik banget tadi jawabannya ya. Sayangnya agak lagging itu jadi kurang kurang clear kalau tadi saya. Nggak apa-apa buat teman-teman, mungkin bisa sambil belajar ya. Nggak harus paham semuanya. Ini kan proses belajar, jadi ya dinikmati aja ya. Paham bagian mana ya nggak apa-apa seperti itu. Silakan kalau ada yang mau tanya lagi ya. Tadi mungkin perlu sambil saya jelaskan kali ya untuk pertanyaan-pertanyaannya yang sudah dijawab tadi sama Pak Josephnya. Yang saya tanyakan mungkin untuk pertanyaan saya ya, yang pertama itu bagaimana sih kepercayaan masyarakat Eropa Barat ya, masyarakat Eropa Barat itu kan selalu jadi indikator ya teman-teman ya, kalau kita ngomong negara maju Eropa Barat, di sana ada apa aja? Ada Jerman, Belanda, Austria, Belgia. Ya udah itu 4 aja itu ya Bu Amal ya, 4 itu ya? Atau ada lagi di Eropa Barat itu?
Apanya? Negaranya tah?
Negaranya.
Belanda, Belgia, Jerman, Prancis.
Oh iya Prancis. Waduh, memang yang terlalu mainstream nggak menarik ya. Prancis, Belgia, Belanda, dan Austria. Itu bagaimana sih kepercayaan media? Mengingat mereka merupakan orang-orang yang berpikirannya mungkin sangat beda ya mindsetnya sama kita. Kalau kita menerima sebuah informasi, kita telan mentah-mentah, tapi kalau mereka kan cenderung kritis orang-orangnya. Nah, saya tadi tanya berhubungan dengan itu gimana sih kepercayaannya masyarakat sana terhadap media itu. Lalu katanya Pak Josephnya tadi itu ada perubahan ya sebelum dan setelah pandemi. Itu beliau menjelaskan bagaimana kepercayaan masyarakat itu juga naik turun dan juga ada bahkan peningkatan kepercayaan terhadap media konvensional ya Bu Amal ya tadi ya yang disebut sama Joseph tersebut.
I think Joseph already joined.
Okay. Joseph is
can
here?
you hear us? Can you hear us, Joe? And maybe you can unmute your mic.
Okay, you back.
Is it because
perhaps Joseph, it's better to turn the camera off first, yeah. To try without camera, it's fine.
Okay, I think he managed to unmute his mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, clearly.
Do I need to repeat the question again?
The administrator didn't let me open my microphone. So.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. The question again, please.
The question is from Kevin. Kevin is from Communication Studies, and he asking about the existence of media community or alternative media in Western Europe. So how about the development of media community or media alternative in Western Europe itself? They have special attention from the public, or perhaps it is not really developed in the context of media community or media alternative in Europe itself, Joseph? Joseph, perhaps?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question, Kevin.
Okay.
This is not alternative in Europe.
No, perhaps you can just turn your camera off because it's getting better, your voice, I guess. Oh,
Okay, he's here.
he's here.
Okay,
Hi,
I'm back
Joe.
again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so we do have a long tradition of alternative in Europe, said more than 50 years. And in the past, this alternative came from the political left. So they have been citizen journalists, they have been media in the radio field where it's cheaper than doing, and there has been a strong movement in the 80s and 90s of the last century of these kind of alternative media. Today, all this shifts into the internet, obviously, and we do have quite a few newly founded alternative media in the internet itself, but they are not very successful. That means they are part of the noise in the internet and they do not really get a lot of attention. The European countries support this development. So most of these media initiatives, as long as they have a minimum size, they will get some public support, a couple of €1,000 per year, not very much, but at least to run the business. So they are an essential part of the media landscape, and they do get public funding.
Okay, Kevin, it is the question, yeah, that turns out it is not really getting special attention from the public itself. And okay, Joseph, the next question, it is from Ahmad Shukron. Wait, let me make sure there is no question after Kevin. Okay, the question is, maybe this is a little bit out of topic. Okay, but so the question is, it is media propaganda can causing the word inflation, or it is just can be done by the government to make it more stable, yeah, in terms of the inflation. Okay, so it is about media propaganda that have probability to causing the inflation. What do you think, Joseph?
No, I don't think this is true. I think that there are very hard facts causing inflation all over the planet. It's not government propaganda. Government has not really an interest in inflation, so it would be very. It is a destabilizing factor in most of the countries and do not have an interest in inflation. So there is not really an obvious reason why they should increase inflation. On the other hand, we have seen first the pandemic, where global supply chains have been broken. So that increases inflation. Secondly, now we have the war in the Ukraine, which is affecting not only Europe, but the global supply chains for food. I'm afraid that even Southeast Asian countries, African countries will feel this, because there will be a shortage of food, because Ukraine is a major supplier of grain. So we do have hard facts which are causing inflation and not so much propaganda. If you ask me how much propaganda is a part of that inflation discussion, I would say less than 1%. The rest of the 99% is economic and politically made.
Okay, thank you. It's very straight question. And we have one question. I have it from private chat. Let me read it. there is some a student send me in the private chat. Wait. Okay, regarding the regulation on media ownership, how do you implying the relation between the degree of regulation and the degree of concentration in terms of Austria or Western Europe? So the relation, the correlation between the level of regulation and the level of concentration itself in the
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
fantastic question. Thank you very much. You have a smart private chat member asking good questions here. Excellent. Thank you. This is already a very detailed and technical question, but if you ask me for Austria, we do have a cartel law. So there is a legislation against cartels, and the cartel is if a few companies control a business. And within this cartel law, there is a set on media industry. And the threshold when something is considered a cartel are much lower in the media industry with a factor of 10 than to other industries. So if media want to concentrate, if they want to take over another one, the threshold asking for permission or even refusal, this is much lower than for streaming. So this is one way of dealing with that you consider media as an critical industry and needs to be treated differently. In that case, 10 times lower as a threshold than for other industry sections. So this is one way, and the calculation I showed you, Herr Findal-Hirschmann index or CR index, they are not yet taken into law, but I expect it to happen in the next 2 years at the European level, that they are including these kind of measurements also into the legislation. But this has not yet happened.
Okay, thank you. I think I have one more private chat member right here. But before I read, perhaps any students want to using raise hand. If you want to just asking directly, it is fine. Everyone, perhaps? Okay, still we have, so I think I will read this another.
There is one more question, Budinda from Dave in the chat box.
Oh, really? Wait.
In Indonesian language.
This is hard to read for me, I must say.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, wait. It is from Dave Yesua. So good evening. In Indonesia, wait. It is like too long. I need just to make this shorter. Okay, so this Dave is wondering, in Indonesia, the media ownership itself, it is commonly often owning by the political figure, as I mentioned before. How about the situation in Europe? It is the owners of media in Europe. They have certain influence for. Wait, it's like they make 3 questions at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I think I got the sense. I hope, Dave. Again, this is an interesting point because we had in the past we had what we called party press in Europe. So these have been newspapers edited and published by political parties, and they were not very successful at the end of the last century. So in the 80s and 90s, they died out, and newspapers became independent, and party press disappeared. But now with the digital platforms, they come back because now we have political parties all over Europe. They have their own channels. You know, they have their own Facebook channels, Twitter channels. They have their private sites. They even produce now online media as a party, and they declare this is a party site. And even politicians themselves are running these kind of services. But again, they are not successful. So this is just for their own bubble, in a sense. So they can deliver the messages to their own friends, to their own voters, to those who are convinced anyway of the party. But they rarely get new people to look into this. So they are feeding their own bubble, but they are not increasing the reach beyond their own bubble. So we are not very worried about this digital political online media because they are restricted to their own field and to their own people. So yes, we have a tradition, but for the moment they are not very, very important to Europe.
Okay, so in Western Europe, actually, right now, the development of digital platforms, DAFE, it makes also the people in the public in Europe, they are feeding their own bubble in digital platform, right? In YouTube, in Instagram, any digital platform that we have, we used to just liking, commenting and give comment in the account that we like. It is like how the situation happening in Europe, that this political figure, they making their own account in YouTube and also other digital platform, and that's why they still have their own people. Let me.
Let me add something because it's important. Europe is not united. We have a European Union, but there are huge differences. And there are a few countries in Europe where the situation is different. I'm talking about Poland and Hungary and until recently Slovenia. They are not small countries. They are important, but they're not the most important ones. And there we have a certain development where oligarchs, meaning party friends from those in power, own the media now. So some of the Western European countries have sold the media. In Hungary, for example, they sold it to an oligarch, which is a close friend of the prime minister. And this oligarch is now running the media. So we do have that phenomenon. They are not in the open, you know, they don't declare that they are friends of the prime minister, but everybody knows. So it is a certain kind of under the surface influence of the owners. And that might be even more dangerous than if it would be open. So we do have that phenomenon here only in countries in Europe and not in the classical Western European countries like the UK or France or Germany or Austria. They do not have this.
Okay, thank you for additional information. And actually, this private chat member question is related with our previous question, right? So it turns out that oligopolistic, perhaps in Indonesia, Joseph, we are more familiar with the terminology of oligarchy rather than oligopolistic. It has the same essential meaning, I guess. And it turns out that oligopolistic structure has dominated the media industry in quite a number of countries. So can we conclude that this is as the impact of the capitalist system that appears in the media world? What do you think about it, Joseph?
Oh, absolutely. This is a fair conclusion, and it's very true. Media are a huge business, first of all. So you can earn a lot of money depending on what kind of media you are producing, but you can become very rich and you can become very influential. So media are a highly attractive field of economy. It is organized in the Western world according to capitalistic rules, indeed. And capitalism has so far in its history always produced ownership concentration. And that's the same thing here in the media. It has produced ownership concentration in the car industry, in the chemical industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, you name them. And now it's the turn for the media as well. But the difference between the media and the pharmaceutical industry is that media are important for opinion shaping. So what people think, what people vote, what kind of political government we have depends on the media. It doesn't depend on pharmacy, it depends on the media. So in that sense, we are, as communication scholars, totally in the right field, and we have a strong responsibility to contribute in the debate here, to contribute in the public debate, to make that visible, that we do not want to have just capitalistically ruled media, but we need to have this welfare element there, we need to have this diversity element there, we need to have the freedom element there, and we need to fight for this. And our research should be done in order to enhance this critical dialogue in society.
Okay, thank you so much. It's really straightforward, yeah. Sorry for Anissa, I think your question is similar, yeah, with the previous one. That's why I will not read it again. But perhaps Amal have another question before, because I still have one question from myself for Joseph. Amal, you have?
I will give the opportunity to you, Mbak Dinda.
Okay. So actually, Joseph, is so interesting. Remembering in the context of Indonesia, yeah, even though the situation is similar in terms of oligarchy and oligopolistic, but here we have the development of alternative media that is quite progressive. So in Indonesia, we have quite numbers of alternative media in the past 2 years that have been showing, yeah, the progress every month, that they are so sharp to criticize our policy, our government, that perhaps what do you think? It is interesting to have. I mean, like in what intersection that we can have this as a research. I mean, like I have been wondering, Joseph, can I make this as my dissertation research, perhaps? Okay, perhaps you have opinion about it is something that significant or important to make this as a like big research for thesis, PhD thesis, or perhaps another research. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I have been supervising a thesis on this topic here in Austria in the last years. So a student has been working exactly on community media and alternative media in different parts of the world. She has been doing that in Australia, in Brazil, and compared it to Austria. And this is a very rich topic for a PhD. So I think this can very well be developed into a PhD project where you identify the democratic role of alternative media, maybe in a comparative perspective. Maybe you look at this not only in Indonesia, but also in other countries, or you do that in different languages in Indonesia. I mean, Bahasa is just one, so you have so many cultures in Indonesia where you could compare this between islands, the Molucca Islands and Sumatra, and I don't know, Kalimantan and Java. I think this is a very rich topic, and I think the research question could be, what is the additional value, the added value these kind of alternative media are bringing to the democratic discourse in Indonesia? Fantastic. I would love this. Unfortunately, I'm not professor in Surabaya, but in Salzburg, but I'd be your supervisor if I was in Surabaya.
No, actually, in Indonesia, we have some special scholarship. Perhaps Amal already told about LPDP, that it's special funding by the government, especially for the scholars. I don't know, perhaps in the next couple years we'll be thinking about, is this topic still relevant or no with the situation in Indonesia. Okay, everyone else, perhaps you have another question. I open one more question perhaps before we close this session, this Q&A session. And please don't forget to fill the attendees in the chat box. Okay, then if you have no question anymore, perhaps Joseph have some closing statement regarding our today's discussion.
Well, I'm delighted that we managed against the difficulties of technology this lecture, and I'm impressed that almost 200 students have participated during this morning. It is a difficult topic. It's a hard topic. I know it's not the most juiciest one. On the other hand, I think it's one of the most important one because it delivers a structure to public communication, which is so important. So I would thank you all for your patience. Maybe it's already evening there in Surabaya and you can go out now to have a drink together and enjoy your time. I'm going to have lunch now. And I'm really happy that this worked out. Amal, thank you so much for taking the initiative. And let us consider this being the beginning of a longer friendship between our universities. And I would like to thank Adib for his support, technical wise, and Dinda, you make a fantastic job. Thank you so much for moderating this afternoon session here.
Okay, anytime. And for everyone, perhaps you can turn your camera on. We will take the picture of our guest lecture before I close the guest lecture today. Could you please? Okay, I will not wait any longer. Perhaps Mas Adit, you can just help us to screenshot this guest lecture. Adit, aku apa kamu, Dit?
Halo.
Ya, Adit, bisa tolong di screenshot?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Can you please counting 1, 2, 3 or what?
Okay.
Oh, we have to count 231 then.
First slide first.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Terima kasih. And then next slide. And then third slide.
Thank you, Dave.
Keep smiling, everyone. A lot of slides here.
Okay, we done.
We done?
Yes.
Okay, so for Joseph, thank you so much. I'm on behalf of the Communication Studies of Untak Surabaya, giving very special for today's lecture. It is so insightful for us that we have this knowledge in the context of Western Europe, Austria, and also Indonesia. We hope we can catch up in the next guest lecture, I guess. Okay, thank you so much once again, everyone. Good afternoon in the time of Surabaya and good morning for the European time. Good evening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you very
Looking
much.
forward to have more activities with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mas.
Yes.
Matur suwun, Pak Joseph.